Part 2. Hey friends, thanks for being here today. I'm Xavier and I'm back with another video for you. If you like this content, please make sure to hit that lovely red subscribe button. You can also find me on Instagram at The Black Case Files, as well as on TikTok at The Black Case Files. I don't mess with Twitter. Let's get into it. Now, this was a two-parter. Part 1 is already up and was about the Chicago housing project, in particular, Cabrini Green. Now that we've talked about Cabrini Green, it's time to talk about Girl X. By the way, all of the trigger warnings for sexual assault, child abuse, beatings, and general violence. Girl X was the little girl who was raped, beaten, doused in gasoline, and set on fire, left for dead in the projects where she lived, Cabrini Green. On January 9th, 1997, 9-year-old Girl X was raped, poisoned, and strangled in a stairwell of the 1121 North Larrabee Street building, leaving her permanently blind, paralyzed, and mute due to brain damage. The attacker used a marker to scrawl gang symbols on her abdomen in an attempt to mislead any investigation and left her for dead, face down in the snow in the dangerously unlit corridor to be found by a janitor who quit the same day. The gangster disciples, the primary gang in Cabrini Green, were so incensed at this that they ordered members to find the attacker. And this is coming from the police. Patrick Sykes, a neighboring 25-year-old male who was not a gang member, was later apprehended by police. He gave a detailed confession and he was prosecuted by Anita Alvarez in the state maximum of 120 years in prison. The story of Girl X. CTA buses stop picking up people heading to work, people going to class, squad cars park at the curbside before moving on. There's always constant activity outside of Cabrini Green, and that's why children in particular felt so safe inside. So day or night, they roam pretty freely between the hallways and up and down the stairwell. And the gang members actually served as security against outside danger. So you have this community of second, third, fourth generation families. And everybody, it was a community, a real community, because everyone kind of took responsibility for everyone's kids. Kind of the way that extended families have always done. Village, child, etc. So, I mean, if the grown-ups didn't know the children by name, they knew them by face. People have kind of learned how to cope with a lot of the gunfire, drug dealing, and murders that happen to occur a lot in public housing, in particular in Cabrini Green. But this particular crime was unsolved for 3 months, and it took an extraordinary toll, not just on the community, but over the country in general. Children were no longer allowed to go outside alone. Everyone walked in groups of 2 or more. They couldn't take the elevator. I mean, it was known to break down between floors and it wasn't safe. So before heading out for school, children, even as young as 6, ended up arming themselves with steak knives, butcher knives, mace. This was their reality. I mean, for all they knew, the person who attacked Girl X was right around the corner. You had a real life boogeyman haunting everybody. But it turns out, as police discovered, he just lived on the 5th floor. The night before the attack, Girl X had slept over her best friend's apartment, which was on the 2nd floor of this particular Cabrini Green high-rise where they lived. I've chosen not to name names, so the 10-year-old best friend remembers that the girls, as usual, stayed up much later than they should have on a school night, to well after 1 a.m. They spent the evening watching cartoons, playing her favorite game of school. Everything went on as normal until the next morning on January 9th, where they got up as normal at 7, got dressed for school. They were getting dressed when Girl X headed out the door an hour later. She said she was running upstairs to get her book bag and take her t-shirt to her grandmother's house. The girls never saw each other again. One mother had just gotten her 6 children off to school when the janitor knocked on her door and asked if anybody knew the baby laying in the hallway. Child. The little girl, who often played with this mother's children, was on the 7th floor landing that they called the ramp. She was laying face down and barefoot in a pile of dirty snow, and it was up against the concrete gang-scarred wall. Her t-shirt was bloody, pulled up to her chest, gang symbols carved into her stomach with a black marker. Another t-shirt was tied around her neck, showing her strangled. Her pants were pulled below her waist. They didn't know who she was until they turned her over. And she was praying, the mother was praying that that girl X was playing dead and saying, "Girl X, get up." And that's when she noticed she was foaming at the mouth, had some blood in the corner of her mouth. She thought she was having a seizure. They untied the t-shirt from around her neck. This mother and a friend carried the child to someone else's apartment and laid her on the living room sofa and called 911. When they saw the blood, they thought she had just been cut or stabbed, but when they saw the pants, they knew she had been raped. The people were on the phone screaming at the paramedics to get there. They got there in record time. However, when the friend went down to the 4th floor to get Girl X's mother, she was crying and screaming when she was told what happened. It was later that police found the 4th graders, because remember, she's in 4th grade, her gym shoes, her jacket, in the incinerator. The police confirmed she had been accosted in the stairwell between 8:30 and 10:30 a.m. and taken into the suspect's apartment where she was assaulted. The suspect sprayed roach repellent in her mouth and left her for dead on the 7th floor. Since then, the story of how the girl, who came to be known as Girl X, was viciously raped, choked, left for dead, spread far beyond Chicago. This little girl laid in a coma for several weeks. Her hip muscles were so contracted she couldn't straighten her body. She didn't have enough strength or muscle control to sit up. When she wasn't in bed, she had to use a specially equipped wheelchair to carry her to and from her 4-hour-a-day therapy sessions. For a long time, she was nourished through the feeding tube that was implanted in her stomach. Her mouth and throat muscles were too weak to chew and swallow. People were hoping that one day she'd be able to use her hands again, and maybe her arms and legs, but they weren't super hopeful. With Girl X's grandmother having recently given up custody, her mother, Girl X's mother, was investigated for neglect, having been barely publicized as a matter of routine to Chicago reporters who indicted the Chicago community's indifference to its living conditions and cited Girl X. This story blew up. It started getting national attention because of one woman, a professional community organizer and originally a former stranger. Beverly Reed sacrificed her job in effort to spend all her time publicizing everything on Geraldo, Lisa, the Oprah Winfrey Show. Beverly Reed, who was also a child rape survivor, she started one of the funds and gave Girl X a public name, Girl X. She believes the child's anonymity prompted people to open their hearts and even their pocketbooks. She's quoted as saying, "In the name Girl X, they realized this could have been anybody's child. They don't attach a face to her, and it makes her that much more real because it really could happen to anyone." She gave people the opportunity to transcend race, class, and everything to help an innocent child. For her, the advocacy of the Girl X campaign is a campaign against sexual assault. A lot of people remember the John Benet Ramsey. There was John Benet Ramsey, who was a rich, white, suburban, affluent 6 years old. No less tragic. And then you have Girl X, a black inner city girl, destitute. They happened within 2 weeks, same experience. She said to her, that shows that sexual assault transcends all barriers, social, economic, and racial. From coast to coast, strangers found a bond with the child. There were two funds set up to pay for long-term care not covered by public aid, and it generated more than $500,000 altogether, mostly from just $5-10 donations. 4 years after the attack, Girl X was in court where the prosecution struggled to get her account of events because they had to do it one letter at a time and watch her head motions. The judge awarded the family $3 million by the Chicago Housing Authority on the grounds of negligence of maintenance and security of the facility, with the money dedicated to the child's long-term care. In 2002, 5 years after the attack, the family decided to reveal Girl X's real name. I will not be doing that. But they were doing it to help publicize Republican Governor George Ryan's impending defunding and shutdown of her state care facility. Her care fund was depleted by 2009, and she aged out of the facility at 22. Girl X is still alive and is truly a survivor. She's made friends with Jennifer Hudson, also from Chicago, and she now lives in Chicago assisted living facility. I know it's heavy, but thanks for watching, friends. I'll see you next time with another Black Case File. Try to upload 3 to 4 times per week, so make sure to follow the Black Case Files on Instagram so you can see what will be uploaded next. See you next time.